And here we go.
Sports!
I listen to you guys all the time.
It's awesome.
I'm in the mood for one of your classic anecdotes.
Give yourselves a round of applause. All right, that's enough. Hey guys, there is someone I want you to meet.
Dave Hooker Show with Caleb Calhoun on Off the Hook Sports. Represented by T. Scott Jones, banksandjones.com, Tennessee's trial attorney from the Ted Russell Ford Lincoln Studio, East Tennessee's #1 volume and customer service dealer, Ted Russell Ford and TedRussellLincoln.net.
I mean, look, we're all part of the same team here.
Now to the Dave Hooker Show on Off the Hook Sports.
Okay, thanks a lot, Mike Ekeler. We had this show completely laid out, and suddenly you have to up and take another job. No, I don't blame you. You're close to home. I get it. We make job decisions based off a lot more than just revenue and potentially winning. But I can go ahead and tell you right now that Mike Ekeler would have won more at Tennessee than he is in Nebraska. So we're off and running after a couple of days off. We appreciate you for being a part of the program. Hit that like and subscribe button if you don't mind. Caleb, we've got a big show on tap today. Caleb back from the West. He didn't get any sun, which I'm trying to figure that out. We'll have Hot or Cold brought to you by City Heating and Air Conditioning. Also, Bank on It brought to you by Commercial Bank. I'll tell you more about our friends at Double D Fire Protection Contractors. But we've got a lot to get to. And it's not oftentimes that we have our 3:45 a.m. production meeting and we chuck the lead. But that's exactly what we're doing today. Caleb, why are we chucking the lead?
Because out of the blue, Mike Ekeler took the assistant coaching job at Nebraska, which no one saw coming, myself included, because we thought that he loved being in Knoxville. But he is headed back to Nebraska to join Matt Rule's staff. I will say I do believe in what Matt Rule's building there. He's from Nebraska, even though he went to Kansas State where he played linebacker. He was born and raised in Nebraska, so he's very familiar with the area. But this is his first job with Nebraska since he worked under, wait for it, Bo Pelini's staff in 2008 to 2010. That's a name. That's a throwback name.
That is a throwback name. I remember Pelini. I remember Pelini's cat being, do you remember him when he was holding his cat? That was like a faux account. Do you remember that?
I don't actually.
Oh, dude, you got to Google that because it makes Bo Pelini seem so sad. Hit that like and subscribe button. We greatly appreciate that. So a lot to get to on the program today, including Tennessee basketball, Lady Vols as well. So a lot to dive into. As Caleb, I would like for you to do this for me, if you don't mind, because I want to pass around the buck occasion, and I've messed it up lately. Can you say it's time for today's tough question, brought to you by Banks and Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney?
It's time for today's tough question, brought to you by Banks and Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney.
Look at that guy, he's a pro.
Today's tough question. Boom. You heard that. Now take it. The Dave Hooker Show with Caleb Calhoun. Represented by T. Scott Jones, banksandjones.com, Tennessee's trial attorney. From the Ted Russell Ford Lincoln Studio, East Tennessee's #1 volume and customer service dealer, Ted Russell Ford and TedRussellLincoln.net. Now to the Dave Hooker Show on Off the Hook Sports.
Okay, Caleb, I don't want to read too much into what you've said because you're always open about your opinions. So I just want to ask you this. Mike Ekeler leaving Tennessee, and let's develop this into a poll question on YouTube in some shape, form, or fashion. But Mike Ekeler leaving Tennessee, let's say, is big, a loss. We're good.
Of those three, you got me leaning towards we're good. And I get it.
I thought I was going to be alone. What are you doing? That's what happens when news breaks after our 3:45 a.m. production meeting. Okay, go ahead. Finish your thought, and then we're just going to have to coincide.
Yeah, well, okay, and here's why. And you guys can correct me on this, but with some very few exceptions, I mean, I don't place a lot of value on a special teams coordinator. You can tell me, Dave, if that's just a title sometimes for a recruiter, or some people are actually like, you know, or if there are people that really go all in trying to be the best special teams coordinator possible. I know when Derek Dooley was called out for not being a ball guy one time, he's like, "Well, I was a special teams coordinator." like that means something.
Okay, you know the one. It's funny. You're going to date me, okay? But the one person I look back at over the years was a guy named Joe Alzano. Maybe somebody can help me there. And we're going to get into the loss of Eckler because there's no question he was the heart and excitement piece of this coaching staff. But I think it was Joe Avazano. Maybe somebody can help me on the message board.
Oh, Joe Avazano. Yeah, I know Joe Avazano.
Okay. I do think he made Billy Bates and Farragut into a special player. He put him in the right spot. I do think that their kickers were tremendous. I don't know if he delegated that or not, but there was a long time where they would have a kicker, and I don't want to just reference Cowboys because I know them, but they would have a kicker for 1 or 2 years, then his contract would be up, and they'd get another one. I don't really know who their kickers were for that span of years, but he was a guy that I think Mike Ekeler probably wanted to be. Caleb, so if you ask me a special teams coach or a great position coach, which I know he coached outside linebackers, and that was pretty questionable as well.
Like two players.
Yeah, really one. I mean, if you think about it, T-Lander and Peely played in the box. I have trouble thinking of this as a loss, other than here's the one reason I do think it's a loss. He was a guy that people gravitated. I'm sure you remember Trooper Taylor. He was a very excitable guy. The difference is Trooper Taylor knew how to coach running backs. He knew how to coach receivers, and he was in line to be an offensive coordinator. Does anybody think that about Mike Ekeler? And I do not want to say that just because he's gone, he's a bad coach. I don't want to go there, but do you see at least what I'm kind of driving at?
Oh, I totally do. And, you know, he's, I mean, it doesn't hurt that he's got a pretty good looking wife too.
I wasn't aware of that, nor was I aware that Caleb scouts out the
assistant coaches' wives.
Yeah. WAGs, girlfriends of, anyway, I don't know the acronym, but I didn't know he had a hot wife. He's a good looking guy.
Not Layla Kiffin hot, okay, but like still pretty good looking. Also Layla Kiffin was super young, so that's a little of an unfair advantage. But anyways, getting back to the point, yes, that is part of it. By the way, quick Joe Avazano trivia since you brought him up. Did you know he was Johnny Majors' first offensive coordinator when Majors took over at Tennessee?
I absolutely did.
Yeah, he was the brains behind Jimmy Streeter of all people.
I look at Eckler, and I understand why he's a fan favorite. I get that because he's excitable. But at the end of the day, those don't win you a lot of games. And at the end of the day, let's take a look at what he did just in terms of a special teams coach, because we can pull that up pretty easy. And his stats are going to be right there. So let's do that. Give me 30 seconds. The show represented by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney, banksandjones.com. Why Banks & Jones? Well, it's because they're Tennessee's trial attorney. You can play to win with Banks & Jones because they'll go to trial. You've heard of other lawyers. They say they'll go to trial and fight for you. They won't. They just want to settle. That's the easiest way out. Well, that's not Banks & Jones, led by T. Scott Jones. They won't settle. They'll go to trial for you. Tennessee's trial attorney. They play to win. Truly, Tennessee's trial attorney when it comes to criminal defense or personal injury. Why settle? It's Banks & Jones. T. Scott Jones. Now, before we say just anybody could coach special teams, let's give Eckler his due. And I want to go to the message board, and you tell me what you think. Tennessee was, for the record, number 1 in punt returns last season. 15.7. That's almost a full point better than Vanderbilt. That was number 2. Okay, so let's go with kickoff returns. Kickoff returns, Tennessee, not as good. 20.71. That ranks 5th in the SEC. All right, we can go a little further. How about a little kickoff coverage and a little punt coverage? But first, before I get to that, what do you think of those numbers? Are they better than you thought or not quite as good as you thought?
No, they're right where I thought they were. I knew they were pretty good on returns, particularly punt returns. But Dave, covering special teams now, for the amount of time I've been doing it, I feel like that has a lot more to do with who you have back there than the coaching. I mean, I got to be honest. I mean, last year they had Boo Carter returning punts, and he was a heck of a punt returner. The other part is these rankings on special teams are really small sample sizes because so nowhere near as many punts or kickoffs are returned as were 15 to 20 years ago.
Okay, very true. And I want to get to that whole notion that special teams, the kicking game, is a third of the game. No, it's not. Do the math. By the way, Tennessee,
it's not.
No, it's not. Opponent punt returns, 6.7. That's 9th in the SEC. All right, and I know we're judging Eckler here, but that's the way things go. Opponent kickoff returns, Tennessee's 12th. So to me, and that's at about 22 yards per return. And I know the game's changed, but to me, they lost an average special teams coach and an excitable, likable guy. Are you supposed to pay to keep something like that when you have to pay to keep Tim Banks? You're going to have to eventually pay. I think you're going to have to pay Rodney Garner some more money. You're going to have to pay a lot of guys on this staff. Now, maybe you save money because you've got an offensive staff that's thrown together by basically interns. But on the defensive staff, it's hard for me to look Garner or Banks in the face and say, oh, this guy's making ballpark to you based off his production. That, to me, is something that would not sell in the locker room.
Let's call this what it is, actually. You just brought it up, and I just looked it up. And I forgot we did this segment, Dave. But remember last month we talked about the 3 coaches who have expiring contracts at Tennessee?
Mm-hmm. And Eckler, Garner, Banks.
Yep. Eckler's contract expired officially on January the 31st. He made this, which was on Friday. He made this move today. What does that tell you? His contract expired, and the coaches were like, we don't really need to renew your contract.
Well, I think a little bit of both. I think that he wanted to get closer to home to Nebraska. So I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt for that. We all make different moves. Like you live in Baltimore, but maybe if you want to be closer to your parents and where they live in Tennessee, I couldn't begrudge you that. Fortunately, we could do the same thing. But with Banks, you can't lose him as a coordinator. With Garner, you can't lose him as a defensive line coach and recruiter. With Eckler, I don't think you're sweating bullets.
You're not, and you got to pinch some pennies. What's going to be more expensive, losing Eckler or maintaining Eckler, or just promoting an off-field assistant into that role? I mean, you're probably going to get a much better deal on that guy, and more importantly, it's not that crucial of a job. You're coaching one linebacker, and again, special teams is kind of special teams coordinator it's a title. That's really all it is, in my opinion, nowadays, given how few kickoffs are. Back in the day, special teams coordinator could be a thing. You're right, because Alan Lowry was the Titans special teams coordinator, and he was a genius. He's the one who drew up the Music City Miracle play. I mean, you don't do that anymore on kickoffs. You don't do that anymore on punt returns or punt coverage or anything like that, because there's just not enough of them. So you don't waste your time thinking about that. And I know you brought up Joe Avisano, but most of the time, there's nobody actually coaching the kickers. You can just either kick or not. So,
well, he had a guy named Deion Sanders returning it.
Yes.
So that was okay. That was a pretty good deal. Let's get to the stat of the day. And I've got a good one. I'm going to see if I can beat Caleb day in and day out on the stat of the day.
We're doing that. We're in competition for stat of the day. I did not know that. Okay.
Oh, yeah, there's going to be an arm wrestling thing here coming up in a second. UPS Store Hardin Valley, helping individuals and small businesses wide a range of products and services, locally owned and operated by Tennessee fans. Stat of the day, and I got a good one, and it has to do with Eckler, and it has to do with special teams. And if Caleb beats this one, I might not ever try again.
Stat of the day. They never lie. Or do they? Stat of the day. The Dave Hooker Show with Caleb Calhoun. Off the Hook Sports.
All right, Caleb, we like to say special teams, the kicking game, a third of the game, which would mean, what about 140 plays on average in a football game? Would you say that's right? Now, when Heupel runs tempo and both teams are running tempo, it can get crazy. But let's just say 140. actually, it's probably more like 120, but in typical football. Okay, how many plays per game on average are special teams? You do your stat of the day first, and then I'm going to see if I can top you because I got a good one.
All right, so my stat of the day is
And that coffee's really hot. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Tennessee. My stat of the day is a basketball one, and we're going to get to the basketball in a little while. But over the weekend, Tennessee became the first team ever in history to win 6 straight home games versus AP top 5 teams.
Okay, let me ask you this. What's more impressive, the way Tennessee bounced back after a tough, devastating loss at Auburn, or getting pretty much handled in the final minutes against Kentucky? What's more impressive, that stat or the way they bounced back?
I would
I'll
say,
be honest with you, we had the discussion, did we not? That they could be going off the rails, that things could be unraveling.
yeah, and doing it's the way they bounced back because they didn't have Jemai Mashak or Igor. I'm not Jemai Mashak. They didn't have Zakai Ziegler or Igor Milichik in that game on Saturday, and they won. I mean, bouncing back without 2 starters and being able to just run 6 guys the whole game, and also their offense wasn't good. They did it with defense, so they willingly went all out to win that game, and they could have easily mentally folded. So it's the way they bounced back.
I got a better stat of the day. I'm just going to go ahead and tell you right now. Are you ready?
I'm ready. Let's go. Let's roll.
On average, how many special teams plays are there in a college football game? You're going to go high because the number actually surprised me.
I'm going to go 18.
12.
Oh man, I was going to start with 12 and I decided to go a little bit higher. 12.
You went a dozen and a half. So are you telling me that Tennessee can't replace Mike Ekeler? It's no offense to him. I swear it's not. But let's be honest.
So that means it's not a third of the game. It's a 10th of the game.
At best. I mean, if they start running tempo, it's like 0.8% of the game. Or it's 8% of the game.
Yeah, and also let's point this out. There's only one factor of special teams that's really crucial that's a difference maker. And that is if you have the right kicker. Particularly in college, Dave, right? If you got an All-American kicker in college, you got an advantage. Tennessee fans know that. When they had Jeff Hall, I mean, that was a huge advantage. That difference wins you a game or two.
Well, did you know this too? It's funny you bring that up, and I'm not going to go Cowboys again, but they did not have a consistent kicker for the better part of the 90s, 2000s, and even to now. They had one special teams coach, and they not a specialty coach. They had a kicking coach, just like a golf coach, and that's exactly what they had you do. Just follow your swing, be a good kicker, and we're going to pay you the minimum, and then you're out the door.
Yeah, I mean that's not. And also what we've learned now with kickers, particularly with Justin Tucker, and I'm not going to get into what he's accused of. I don't want to go into that right now, but I didn't realize he was the Deshaun Watson of kickers. But
well, thank you for adequately massaging that piece of information.
Oh Lord. Okay, so what's
by the way, I just want to say he hasn't even been charged of anything. This is way different than the
You're right. You're right. He hasn't. But what I will say about Justin, he's had a major drop off in his kicking the last few years since former Vol Morgan Cox left. And what we have to point out is that long snapping is as much
as a Cox. There may have been other issues.
Oh my gosh, with Justin Tucker. Yeah,
I'm just telling you, whether or not you're criminally charged, that would hang over you. He went from 92% to 74% as a kicker this past year.
Yeah, losing. Here's the thing: people don't get this. Long snapping is half of kicking. Like, how big of a deal how many kicks have you seen missed bad, and then you look at the replay, you're like, that was a horrible snap, and it's hard to kick it if it's a horrible snap. And it's the most underrated part of the game, honestly.
Listen, I don't care if Tucker, maybe whoever the greatest kicker of all time is. Mount Cody's still going to block that with his boob twice.
Yeah, if you don't have good blocking up front, that's very true. Although
yes,
Terrence Cody's block against Tennessee, wasn't that because Daniel Lincoln took too long to like run up? Didn't he like wait too long when he would run up to kick? Wasn't that one of his habits?
He maybe, I don't remember that, but I know that Lane Kiffin had, he had it to do over again. He had about like 17, 18 seconds. He should have tried to pick up 10, 12. 15.
No, he didn't want to screw up and get blamed if he messed up. He knew that this way he could pin all the blame on his kicker.
Right. It's you, Lincoln. Peak IV hydration in South Knoxville and Sevierville. Live life to your fullest. Hydrate, rejuvenate, and elevate your health with Peak IV hydration. That's peakivhydration.com. Let's talk some Tennessee basketball, as that was going to be our lead story. But hey, that didn't happen because you have a fan favorite that's decided to go elsewhere. Okay, let me ask you this real quick before we move on. Eckler to Nebraska or Trooper Taylor to Oklahoma State? What was the better move?
The better move for the coach? I mean, I got to say up front, Eckler to Nebraska. Trooper Taylor was a little impatient and didn't want to wait for Fulmer to make a decision. And so I think there's a possibility he still could have gotten the OC job if he just waited a little bit. And
you said it. I didn't. I actually love him like a brother, so I'm not going to say that, but I think you pretty much nailed it. What the H does the NCAA NIL settlement with Tennessee and Arch Manning hype put pressure on Nico Iamaleava? And it does.
What the H?
Wow, I never worked hard on anything. What a cool life.
For real? The Dave Hooker Show with Caleb Calhoun. Represented by T. Scott Jones. ThanksandJones.com. Tennessee's trial attorney. From the Ted Russell Ford Lincoln Studio, East Tennessee's #1 volume and customer service dealer. Ted Russell Ford and TedRussellLincoln.net. Now to the Dave Hooker Show on Off the Hook Sports.
I love how we find a way, and this is Caleb's. It came up at the 3:45 a.m. production meeting. I was like, Caleb, don't do this. You're just tying in the Manning family to Tennessee. What are you doing? But he sold it, and I kind of buy it. So tell us exactly what happened in terms of the University of Tennessee, because this was a lot quieter than the last one. They news dumped it on a Friday, I think, which makes no sense to me. But this one's a lot quieter than I had shirts printed up that the NCAA got beat by Tennessee in a lawsuit with the state of Virginia. But this, to me, is a settlement, and it's way different. Why?
Yes, so the NCAA and a coalition of states led by Tennessee reached a settlement in their lawsuit against the NCAA over the weekend on Friday, I think is what had happened. The settlement is basically a deal in principle that'll protect NIL rights during the recruiting process. And now the NCAA and will prohibit the NCAA from bringing back its NIL recruiting ban. Effectively in this settlement, the NCAA acknowledged.
Can I stop you for a second? NIL recruiting ban. Are we talking about like going way back to the Ed O'Bannon video game basketball thing?
No, we're talking about the guardrails they tried to put on NIL when NIL first got legalized a few years ago.
So this is one of those kind of temporary injunction things, right? Where I
this is permanent now because the NCAA has.
No, I know it is now, but what you're telling me is the other thing was kind of like a temporary injunction.
Yeah, that was a temporary injunction.
Please don't do it, or it could be bad.
Yes.
Basically. Okay.
Yes. This settlement is the NCAA officially admitting we have no right to regulate NIL. Do what you want. We can't do anything about it. And Nico Iamaleava is at the heart of that settlement because he's the star. He's the $2 million man. Immediately after this happened, Arch Manning, who we know is going to be the starter for Texas this year, Vegas named him the favorite to win the Heisman outright. He's now the favorite on most betting sites to win the Heisman. Arch Manning, despite having not been a starter yet.
Okay, a lot of that's because of his name, but anyway,
he was a feature of an ESPN interview over the weekend, and after not taking any NIL money his first 2 years because he said he wants to earn it, he just signed a monster NIL deal with Red Bull right after this happened. So Arch Manning spent all weekend generating all the hype while this settlement happened, of which Nico Iamaleava was at the heart of. And we also know Nico Iamaleava is going to be tied to Arch Manning since they were in the same recruiting class.
Okay, let me tell you something about the Mannings, and this is going to sound like an insult, but I do not mean it like that. I swear I don't. They are very calculated. Do you think that they just fell into the Manning cast? Do you think they fell into all of these things? Do you know that Archie Manning used to carry around a portfolio So before they would go to golf tournaments, that his son could see the most important people there and say, this is Caleb Calhoun. You need to meet him. He's the head of JFG Coffee, and because that coffee is burning my mouth. And you need to know that his son is Quincy because you need to ask about him. So yes, that happened. They are that premeditated and that orchestrated. And I don't think that's a bad thing, Caleb. I felt like I was pretty premeditated when I put together this thing. So it's a factor in that Arch is going to go get more money. And I agree with you. Nico is currently going to try to get more money. And I think he had a whiff that this might happen in the offseason. And that's why that the Nico's dad, I don't want to say Nico, but I think that's why they went after more money.
I think so too. But given the Arch Manning hype now, because the Arch Manning hype train has begun, it's right where the Peyton Manning hype train was entering the 95 season after his freshman year. You probably remember that, Dave, right? Where Peyton Manning was like very well hyped up when going into his sophomore year. How much pressure is on Nico Iamaleava now? How through the roof is it after he's already started for a year?
Well, I think it depends, Caleb. I don't think it's that easy. If he puts more pressure on himself to make more money, and his dad puts more pressure, if there's a Nico's Chop House, or Nico's Steakhouse, which I've heard is a possibility, believe it or not. He puts a lot more pressure on himself, because I can tell you right now, if I get a steak that's medium instead of medium rare, I'm going to be upset with Nico. I'm not just going to be upset with the chef. I'm going to be all around mad. I mean, seriously, have you had a steak recently that's overcooked? That's the worst. So no,
I want my medium rare, and I want blood coming down my mouth when I eat it.
Amen, brother. You're a great man. I'm just telling you that, yes, it puts more pressure on him. Now, the flip side is keep it super quiet, right? And if he gets any more money, if Red Bull calls him, I don't know how you can keep that quiet. That'd be a national ad. But there are a lot of people who throw money at athletes at Tennessee, and they throw it at them because they want to be, buddies with them. It's not necessarily because it helps their business. So maybe there could be some quiet ones where a realtor says, what I'd like to do is put you in this $1 million house. But for the most part, advertising is based off public promotion, correct?
Correct.
I mean, we don't do what we do sitting in our bedrooms, just, talking about, hey, you need to do this and that and Banks and Jones. And no, you want a big audience. So I don't understand how he can get around it and not have a big audience and not turn Tennessee fans the wrong way. And I think that very well could happen.
Oh, absolutely. And so let's pose it this way. What puts more pressure on Nico? The fact that Arch Manning is getting a lot of the hype now, or the fact that he is now at the heart of this NCAA settlement that just happened?
Wait, you lost me. Repeat the question.
What puts more pressure on Nico? The fact that he's the face of the settlement that just basically effectively killed the NCAA for all the money he took, or the fact that Arch Manning, his kind of recruiting rival, is getting so much hype now? What puts more pressure on Nico?
I think that the initial, but I think the pressure's lighting a little bit. I think the pressure now is coming from dad, who wants more and more money in the offseason. And I think the pressure from this lawsuit falls on Arch because he's a Manning. So
yeah, but the lawsuit's not connected to Arch as much, is what I mean. Because the lawsuit, like Iamaleava was the center of the lawsuit.
Exactly. I just feel like he's kind of blown under the radar, except for his dad demanding more money in January. I felt like he was just, still good.
To me, that's how Iamaleava, and I'm not so sure this is the best mentality. I think he himself is still good for everything. He seems like a just, go about his business, grab his lunch pail, go to work, do his job, and go home. I don't see I know that people said this was a problem with the way Peyton Manning approached it back in the day, but I feel like I don't see man, this moment's really big. I really got to step up. And I don't see I don't feel like I get urgency from Nico.
Well, it depends. I mean, if he's suddenly the $50 million man instead of a $2 million man, I'm going to expect a lot more if I'm a Tennessee fan.
Oh yeah, I agree. I mean, that's a whole NIL budget.
We're not that far from that happening. I mean, I think he's pushing 6, 8, 10 right now, don't you? Based off the stuff he's doing? Promise two coming in. And I know they're saving money on other players. So I don't know where all that money is going, but I know they're saving money on other players.
That is wild.
Yeah, David wants to throw this out there. Nico has 1 year leash, or he'll be replaced, recruited over. Maybe that's a topic for tomorrow. What's the most likely scenario that Nico's a superstar at Tennessee, that Nico loses his job, or that Nico just goes pro? Because I think if we had to rank those, pro was number 1 2 years ago, right?
Easily number 1, yeah. I mean, that's a really good question. Goes pro, loses his job, is just a starter next year. Wow. Or 4 transfers.
You got a pen and paper? Write that one down. That's a hot one. All right, 2 minutes coming up on the program. We're going to get to hot or cold. Yes, basketball is a big topic of what we're going to discuss. Who's hot? Who's cold? Chaz Lanier, Tennessee's defense, Rick Barnes, the Vols' depth. Well, I pretty much answered the last one. It's pretty much frigid, like the shower I just took, because the water heater's out. The show represented by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney, banksandjones.com. I actually had to do some jumping jacks before we started the program. He's Caleb Calhoun. I'm Dave Hooker, Off the Hook Sports.
Hey, Ted, it's time to save some cash during New Year's Bash.
Savings is my prime directive. Let's see what you got, Nick.
Right now, you can save up to $10,000 on new Ford F-150s. Beat that, Ted.
Most impressive, but how about 0% for 72 months on Ford Lightning or Ford Mustang Mach-E?
Ted Russell Ford has huge savings on whatever you're looking for.
This checks out.
Come see us today at either Ted Russell Ford location, Parkside Drive, or Kingston Pike, or online at tedrussellford.net.
Now in its 45th year, the second and third generations continue Joe Newbert's commitment.
His vision of what this business needed to be, we still try to live up to that.
Joe Newbert Collision Center.
Having been in the jewelry industry for a long time in the Knoxville community, I saw a need for a jeweler, a real jeweler.
Our ability to do these designs has really been based on the customers bringing new things in and challenging us as a store. Our goal is not to tell anybody what they want. Our goal is to listen to what they want and then help them get there.
Schedule your consultation today to get your special someone the perfect custom gift just in time for the holidays.
Hi, Mike Davis here with City Heating and Air, reminding you to always dare to compare. Our team provides quality local heating and air service, installation, and maintenance across East Tennessee. We use only the best equipment like American Standard heating and air conditioning for your residential, new construction, or commercial needs. Honesty, dependability, and customer satisfaction have been the cornerstones of our business since 1961. City Heat and Air. Dare to compare.
Double D Piping provides full-service fire protection on any scale. From residential homes to government facilities, we can assist any customer through design, fabrication, installation, inspection, and demonstration of fire suppression systems. With 30 years of service across 5 states and a full staff with over 40 years experience, our quality can't be beaten. Don't get caught watching what you could have prevented. Call Double D Piping.
Coaching IQ. Not all coaches are dumb.
All right, I'm in. Me too.
Let's do this.
Are we sure about that? The Dave Hooker Show with Caleb Calhoun, represented by T. Scott Jones, banksandjones.com, Tennessee's trial attorney. From the Ted Russell Ford Lincoln Studio, East Tennessee's #1 volume and customer service dealer, Ted Russell Ford and tedrusselllincoln.net. Now to the Dave Hooker Show on Off the Hook Sports.
Caleb, how well do we do in NBA markets? Oh, great.
I mean, I guess the only 2 we would really touch the most would be Atlanta or Memphis.
Okay, this isn't technically a coach, but trading Anthony Davis for Dirk Nowitzki has to be pointed out as being.
Look at Doncic. Look at
Doncic.
Dave's getting his whites mixed up.
All right. He's one funny honky, that Caleb Calhoun.
Well, okay, I thought about this and I'm like, they're like, who got the better? And I'm like, I don't really like this for either team. honestly,
I
because
don't either, but the injury factor outweighs one to me than the other. Anthony Davis hasn't played 3 games in a row since, I believe, 78.
That's a great point. LeBron and Luka aren't going to work that. I mean, I guess because Luka's a scorer, LeBron can facilitate for Luka since LeBron doesn't want to be a primary scorer anymore. But like, the thing that we miss about like small forwards nowadays or wing players or backcourt players is the ability to pass. You know, people have debated, like, is Kevin Durant the second or third best small forward of all time, him or Larry Bird? I'm like, well, Kevin Durant's a better scorer, but he can't pass to save his life. And that's what set Larry Bird apart from so many other people.
Well, it's positionless basketball. When we start talking about forwards and guards, I mean, my eyes glaze over sometime. Quality Tire Pro, serving Chattanooga's community since 1957. All major brands of tires, full service automotive, brake alignments, oil changes, qualitytirepros.com. qualitytirepros.com. I still remember Phil Jackson saying they'll all be positionless basketball players like Scottie Pippen. Everybody's like, they won't be like just like Jordan. And he goes, no, Scotty's longer, has longer arms. And I thought, that sounded crazy at the time, but that's exactly what's happened. I mean, if you look at the big guys like Luka or whoever you want to throw out there, they're exceptions to the rule just because they're blessed with great height. They're still playing positionless basketball.
Yeah, no, you're right. That I agree.
I wasn't trying to start an argument with you. I found it interesting that's happening. I don't know where Zakai Ziegler ends up. Let's put it that way.
Dylan did not have to say that. The Luka trade felt an awful lot like the A.J. Brown trade. Here's a stat of the day for you, Dave. All right, you ready for this? Quick stat, randomly. You know, a few years ago, the Titans traded A.J. Brown for a draft pick, which they used to draft Treylon Burks as his replacement receiver. A.J. since that time, wait. Here's a stat.
To be honest, I thought he was going to be good.
I'd liked the trade too, and I feel stupid now, but A.J. Brown has been to more Super Bowls than Treylon Burks has caught touchdown passes.
Yeah. All right, let's move on. That's what people like for us to do. We're not going to sit on the NBA throne for very long. As a matter of fact, we're wiped and move on. So here we go. It is 4 downs, and it's brought to you by City Heating and Air Conditioning. 50 years in East Tennessee. Integrity matters. I can tell you they work on my equipment, and they will absolutely do their best to give you the best service and the best prices, because other people just say, hey, why don't you spend a lot of money on this? No, you don't necessarily have to. All right, Caleb, so let's get going. Hot or cold right now. Tennessee basketball was going to be our lead after the win over Florida this weekend, but we didn't go in that direction because we had the Eckler news and a lot broke. So I want to go ahead and start with this. Hot or cold, brought to you by City Heating and Air Conditioning. Chaz Lanier, who, my goodness, Caleb's been all over the thermostat on. He's been hot. He's been cold. Is he hot or cold right now? Brought to you by City Heating and Air Conditioning.
Oh, sorry. I thought you were going to play the ad. I apologize. Confused.
Okay.
It's Chaz Lanier hot. So Tennessee basketball over the weekend beats Florida 64-44. They were bound from a big loss to a 2-game losing streak, a top 5 Florida team with 2 players out, by the way. And Chaz Lanier was really the only offense for them. They won with defense. Chaz Lanier, 5 of 9 from 3, really seemed to get his footing back. So with that in mind, I got to say he's hot. I got to give Chaz Lanier some credit. I mean, I called him out on Friday. I said it's time for Chaz Lanier to meet the moment because he's been putting up a lot of great stats without meeting the moment. And in this game, he met the moment. He finally decided that, hey, I'm not just decided. He finally was able to shoot well when given the looks against an important team like Florida.
Okay, let me ask you this, though, and I'll update our poll question here momentarily, but you have been all over the place with Chaz, and that's fine. We're reactive people. But let me throw this at you for just 1 second, if I may. Will you be hot on him a week, 2 weeks from now in March?
I still can't go there yet. I can't go if he just got lucky and got hot for 1 game. And again, this wasn't a close game since Tennessee kind of controlled it. So I can't say I'll be hot on him a week from now, particularly when, like I'm saying, what would Chaz Lanier have done if this were a game within 5 points instead of a 20-point game?
He seems to be a front runner.
He does. It's very Cam Newton-esque, isn't it? From back in the day. Cam Newton was it.
I'll take Cam Newton. I'll go NBA-wise, another guy. I always thought Ray Allen. He was a great shooter. I think probably the greatest shooter of all time, but he did a lot better when his team was doing better.
That is true. That's a good one. Except for that 3 he hit to save LeBron a ring in 2013. But
Agreed.
Yes,
if you shoot that well, you're going to hit one every once in a while.
And he was so open there, he should have hit it.
So open.
So yeah, with that in mind, yeah, I could see that. Chaz Lanier is very much a front runner, and that's you know what, Dave, you're talking to me. I'm still cold on Chaz Lanier. Nope, I'm still cold on him because here's the thing: Chaz Lanier can. You're right. When things are going well and Tennessee's defense is playing well, and Florida is shooting a record low percentage from the field, which they did. Okay, Chaz Lanier will hit some threes, but like, what is Chaz Lanier going to do when Tennessee's in an offensive funk against the top 10 team and another team's on a 10-12-0 run and they got to do something to get out of it? Can Chaz Lanier get a bucket to get out of it? He still hasn't shown he can do that.
Well, and that leads me to Matt's comment. I want to bring that up. Matt, with a very good comment that I think is apropos. He said, where was he? I've lost Matt. Okay. They found space for Chaz finally, especially in the second half. That was supposed to be his job, to create space for himself by taking it to the rack. So, yes, they found space for him, but if they going to have to depend on that, that makes no sense to me. John says Chaz Lanier is, if I can pull it up, where did it go? Chaz Lanier is a problem. I think he's in the corner and won't drive an open lane when he doesn't feel like it, too inconsistent for the money. I will tell you that somebody called me over the weekend, and this is a basketball coach that knows what he's talking about. He goes, why in the world is Chaz Lanier just sitting in the corner? And I said, I have no answer for that. Hot or cold? Yes.
And Tony Jones called him out last week for it on our show. I mean, like, he was sitting in the corner, and people were complaining about Zakai Ziegler shooting too many threes. But I'm like, guys, Ziegler's doing this because the primary scorer is taking himself out of the game. I mean,
I'm with you.
It's kind of like Allen Iverson had a great quote one time because, you know, he shot some of his analytics are really bad because he shot such a low percentage. But he had a quote. He said, if I pass the ball to Eric Snow and he passes it to Aaron McKee and he passes it to Dikembe Mutombo and he passes it back to me and now there's 3 seconds in the shot clock, what am I supposed to do?
Plus, any of those guys you just mentioned probably shot a much lower percentage than Allen Iverson. Yeah. So if I'm hitting, I'm just throwing a number out, 48%. 55%, and I pass it to that dude, and Eric Snow's hitting 24. Does anybody win? Okay, Tennessee's defense, hot or cold? I would have to think hot. Yeah, I mean, I would have to think hot over the weekend.
Hot, very hot, and they got lucky that Florida shot such a low clip, but at the same time, they contested every single shot, and you know, I know he didn't score a lot because he's still trying to get rhythm, but Rick Barnes holding Darlington Dubar back just because of his defense is not that great of a look right now because Darlington Dubar played very good defense in this game. And
I got bigger problems with Dubar than that.
I get it, but you held him back for defense and his defense really showed up. Jemai Meshack was Jemai Meshack. I think moving Dubar at the 4, here's what I'm going to say. Hot take. I'm a little higher on. That's a very hot take. And I agree.
By the way, for those on our audio platform, Chaz saying on our post, Chaz is the one guy you expect to make open shots. That's his primary job. So finish your point, please.
I think Dubar can be a little more physical guarding guys under the basket than Igor Milicic can. And I think that.
Yeah. I mean, why did one basketball coach, again, I'm not going to out him, but why did one basketball coach call me and say, I know why Dubar's not playing in the first half of that Auburn game? It's because effort. Sometimes effort is fighting through picks, and sometimes effort is doing exactly what you're talking about. So let's move on. So I want to get to a couple of things. Rick Barnes, is he hot or cold right now? Tennessee's depth, is it hot or cold right now? Because I think this basketball team's showing you a little something. I will be able to call City Heating and Air Conditioning anytime I need to and know that I'll get top flight service. I've had other people that have come out and said thousands of dollars before I knew City Heating and Air Conditioning. They're like, oh, we can get this fixed. It just needs a part. Again, hot or cold, brought to you by City Heating and Air Conditioning.
Hi, Mike Davis here with City Heating and Air, reminding you to always dare to compare. Our team provides quality local heating and air service, installation, and maintenance across East Tennessee. We use only the best equipment like American Standard heating and air conditioning for your residential, new construction, or commercial needs. Honesty, dependability, and customer satisfaction have been the cornerstones of our business since 1961. City Heat and Air.
All right, who's up next for us, Caleb?
Rick Barnes.
Yeah. Here are my thoughts. He's lukewarm, Rick Barnes. He's always kind of lukewarm. He's, to me, never like the greatest X's and O's coach. He coaches great defense. He recruits at a decently high level.
He develops players extremely well.
He develops players, but I can't upgrade him for anything he's done recently. So to me, he's still Rick Barnes.
Rick Barnes is the Mark Richt of college basketball. Mark Richt, I thought, was a little bit less on the X's and O's front. Wouldn't you agree, Dave? But he had principles. He never sacrificed those principles, and he always, whatever else you think of him, he always developed players. And he's probably one of the best men to ever coach football in the SEC. Mark Richt, isn't he?
Yes. I wouldn't argue with any of that, and I like the similarity that you're throwing out there. I hope for Rick Barnes' sake that he's able to at least make another Final Four run or win a championship, because that still has to bug Mark Richt to this day, right?
Oh, yeah. And he would have had one if Terrence Edwards didn't drop a fourth down pass against Florida in 2002. But it's I'm hot on Rick Barnes for what he's doing this year, because he's had to adjust a lot more than he planned to. Again, he didn't plan to lose J.P. Estrella for the season. He didn't plan for Baylor to tamper and take Cameron Carr away from him in December. He didn't plan for he didn't plan for Zakai Ziegler and Igor Milicic to both be hurt in this game. So he's running way fewer guys than he went 7 deep in this game, and he expected to have 4 other guys that would have been rotational guys at the beginning of the year. So I'm gonna say hot this year.
Let's go to the final one. Vols' best hoops attribute is Chaz, Vols D, Rick Barnes. Vols depth at 4%. I'm surprised this made the list, Caleb. I think their depth, they were lucky to go 7 deep at Auburn. It's not good.
What does it say, though, that they could go 7 deep and win this game when they had 2 players out?
Well, I think it says that those guys played hard, but if you're asking me about the depth, they don't have great depth.
Shouldn't they be able to go 9 deep now? If they can do this to a team going 7 deep with 2 players out, doesn't that mean they should be able to go 9 deep when both players are back and they can play all of them 20 minutes or so?
I guess you would think so, but that doesn't seem to be the way this team is constructed. And Rick Barnes has always had a short bench, hasn't he?
No, okay, it depends. Rick Barnes has had a shorter bench than he should, because Rick Barnes has this principle of you earn playing time. So he's borderline. I don't know if you guys know the moment of Gene Hackman and Hoosiers where he was benching a guy on principle, and then a player fouled out and they only had 4 players, and he's like, I'm not putting this guy back in. My team's out there right now. It's that type of, it was stupid. It was dumb. That movie's really, really stupid, guys. But it's like Rick Barnes is kind of that type of principle of I will sacrifice my depth if someone's not doing what I think they need to do to get on the court, because I believe you earn playing time. And that leads to a short bench a lot of times.
So big TS in South Dakota. I assume you're in South Dakota. I just says SD. Rick finally got out of his chair and worked the referees to this game. The reason I want to bring this comment up, I think Rick Barnes is damn serious about turning this into a physical defensive team, because he realizes he can't throw up 80, 90 points a game. I think that's where he is. And if you don't like it, then you're not going to be on board.
Yeah, and he didn't want to do that, by the way, because that's not Rick Barnes' principles. That used to be his principles, and he thought they would cost him in the tournament, but he doesn't really have much of a choice now because the offense is so limited. Because, yeah, Igor played well against Kentucky, but still disappeared way too often offensively when he was left open on shots. Chaz Lanier is so streaky and is scared of the moment. It's it's leading to a certain degree. I think because the scores that are supposed to be the scores aren't doing what they need to do, I think it's leading to Zakai Ziegler playing a little more out of control than he typically does. And
a little bit. I was the Mr. Zakai is out of control guy. I'm not willing to go there with you quite yet.
Well, the Kentucky game, I thought he was out of control. And I thought he was out of control because when other players aren't doing what they need to do, Zakai starts pressing a little bit to try to force something because nobody else will. And that ends up being to a detriment because whatever else you can say about Zakai, and you can love him, but he's not a scorer. He's not that great of a scorer. And
I wouldn't argue that. I wouldn't argue with that at all. I would definitely not argue with going to Hound Dogs of Knoxville. I think we've got a new member of the YouTube channel. Where did that person go? Come on, help me scroll down and find. I know we have Steve. Steve's been hooked up with a T-shirt. We have a new member. Find that for me if you don't care. Because, it's Timothy. No, it's not. All right, just find out who it is.
Timothy. Have y'all seen the Key and Phil sketch? Timothy.
Did you find him? Or are you just...
No, I'm looking.
Okay, you find it. Here is, it has a star next to it. All you have to do is email me, and I will hook you up with a Hound Dogs gift certificate because Hound Dogs is awesome. Champions look good in orange. hdknoxville.com. hdknoxville.com. Also want to thank our friends at Newbert Collision Center, who unfortunately I've had to get to know lately, but their customer service is unbelievable. For nearly 50 years, Newbert Collision Center has been East Tennessee's best choice for quality to retire work, and that's fantastic customer service. Let's go ahead and dig in to our where were we? Stat of it? No. This day in Tennessee sports history is brought to you by our friends at Dynasty Pools and Spas. The best spas right there in Athens. Check the best chemicals for your pool and spa right there in Athens. Stop by, mention Off the Hook Sports, and you get $500 off and a free prize. We're giving stuff away, and anybody that joins the channel gets a Hound Dogs gift certificate, and Caleb will buy them a hot tub from Dynasty Pools and Spas. Caleb, what is this day in Tennessee sports history?
On this day, just last year, we're going to go to last year. Tennessee did something it rarely does. They beat a top 10 Kentucky team at Rupp Arena, 103-92.
Nice.
I know it was just last year, but that is history, man, to do that. When Kentucky's in the top 10, people don't win in that arena.
No, never, ever. Speaking of winning, the Lady Vols beat Missouri. I want to get an update on our poll question real quick. Vols' best hoops attribute. Yes, we're talking about the men. Sorry if we were sexist in some shape, form, or fashion. Caleb wrote the question. I'll just read it. Right. Vols D 58%, Rick Barnes 23%, Chaz 15%, and Vols depth 4%. Steve wants a new truck. That's going to be a grand prize later on. All right, Caleb. The Lady Vols beat Missouri. You know, we're getting to the point where every game affects your tournament resume. We're getting to the point where they weigh those last 10 games. So Tennessee appears to be at least close to firing all cylinders. How close would you call them?
I'm not going to say firing on all cylinders. Many people would say their win over Missouri yesterday, even though it was on the road against an SEC team, is probably their most concerning game they've played so far, or was the worst game. Missouri's not a good team, and after putting up a fight against a lot of top 10 teams and losing close games, they needed a close one to win this one. I would venture to say, and Dave, you know how this works. If you've been like fighting your guts out against top 10 teams and constantly losing and coming up short, and then you finally play an easier team, you're probably mentally so drained you're taking that day off, right? To a certain degree.
I would agree with that.
And you're on the road taking the day off at a Missouri team that if you take the day off could be dangerous. And so they put up a fight. And Missouri, has exposed that are some of the issues that are still with this team right now because it's Kim Caldwell's first team, which is they don't have they're not great at scoring in the paint in their half-court offense. Their half-court offense, they can either score in the paint in transition or shoot well from three. But they don't score in the paint well while running their half-court sets, and that's an issue they got to work on. And the other part is their half-court defense, just period, is an issue if they're not getting the steals and forcing the turnovers. And this is part of adjusting to Kim Caldwell's system. We know what she wanted to focus on first. and that was the tempo, and that's creating these problems. They did enough from three. They were 10 of 25. Talaysia Cooper is looking like a superstar. She had 27 points in the game, 6 steals, 7 rebounds, 4 assists, and 3 block shots. So literally did everything. Z Spearman had 13 points, 2 steals, a block shot, 2 assists, 2 rebounds. And Jewel Spear off the bench was 2 of 4 from 3, had 8 points, and she closed the deal because she hit 2 free throws late after Missouri had a chance to tie it, but went for a layup when they were trailing by 3. So I think you're right. Every win is a resume win at this point. They're not going to hold it against Tennessee for struggling with Missouri. They're still in the top 25 despite a 3-game losing streak. So really just winning this game was the big deal. But it was somewhat of a wake-up call they could have used because the next 2 games for them, Dave, are UConn at home and LSU on the road.
Okay. So let me ask you this, not to go off kilter, because I think we all agree that people, they have every right to have offspring. Do you think the fact that Kim Caldwell had a baby last week or 10 days ago made her players play harder, had no effect whatsoever, or was a distraction from an X's and O's standpoint? Again, it's fine to have distraction. It's a baby, for goodness sake. Again, that is a question we'll ask about the Lady Vols as we remind you that portions of the program are brought to you by Dynasty Pools and Spas. Dave Hooker here for Dynasty Pools and Spas, your home for the best spas and everything you need to jump right in. Relaxing, therapeutic, absolutely. But what sets Dynasty Pools and Spas apart from others is that you get everything with any spa purchase. You get the cover lift, the steps, delivery, and chemicals. When Dynasty Pools and Spas delivers your spa from their Athens location within 125 miles, you'll get your own personal hydrotherapy spa. Mention me, Dave Hooker, or Off the Hook Sports, and get $500 off your top quality new spa. Dynasty Pools and Spas, just off the Athens exit. Drop in and receive a free gift from Off the Hook Sports, Dynasty Pools and Spas. Mention Off the Hook Sports for a drop-in prize and that $500 discount, Dynasty Pools and Spas. To check out some of the Dynasty Spa models and to buy spa chemicals, go to dynastypoolsandspas.com. I think that right now it's too early for Kim Caldwell to get in a pool and spa. I don't think you're supposed to be in warm water yet, but at some point, she would greatly appreciate Dynasty Pools and Spas in Athens. Stop by and get a free Off the Hook Sports prize and also get registered to win more. And by the way, $500 off that new spa. I'm going to stand firm. I don't think it really had much of an effect. I can't say that the head coach not being there didn't have somewhat of an effect. You know, she's smart. She's going to give her basketball input. That to me is, it had somewhat of an impact, but not a huge one.
Yeah, I think the bigger impact is they just played 3 good teams. 2 of them that just right now are better than the Lady Vols. The Lady Vols will get there. They're right there. You can see they're right there, but they have there's still a lot of adjustments to be made with this system. And with that comes they lost to Vanderbilt by 1 on the road. As I've told you guys 1,000 times, Vanderbilt Memorial Gym is the craziest place to play. Whenever the NCAA Tournament Selection Committee should just ignore losses to Vanderbilt for teams. Wouldn't you agree, Dave, if it's at Vanderbilt?
Well, that's a little strong. I will tell you this. I would never hold a game there in the NCAA tournament, and I would probably take a loss there with a grain of salt. I'm going to say
now that you say that, the NCAA is definitely going to hold a game there one day because they love the chaos, honestly, in the NCAA tournament. So, yeah, that one I forgive. At Texas, that's when Kim Caldwell was giving birth, so that was the game she missed. Her not being there was already a distraction, but also Texas is a top 10 team, and I think maybe a little bit better than the Lady Vols right now. And then the next one was South Carolina at home. I mean, nobody's going to accuse this team of being better than South Carolina this year. So, I mean, you can't really look into that. So none of those really stand out despite the 3-game losing streak. Struggling with Missouri yesterday was what stood out. But again, I think that's where the distraction set in. You know, you were on a 3-game losing streak. All 3 games you could have won, 2 against top 10 teams, another one on the road against a good team. During that time, your coach went into labor. You feel like you go into the Missouri game feeling like you've got an off day, feeling like you've kind of got a game you can coast by and win like 25, 30 points. And then that mentality cost you and they put up a fight and you got to win the game in the end. So I think that's where the distraction came out.
Part of the maturation of a basketball team. I've got no problem with that.
It is. I mean, and heck, even teams at their peak do that. I mean, how many times did Nick Saban have to talk about rat poison at Alabama?
But yeah, I mean, if they'd have lost, we'd be having a different conversation, right?
Right. And they found a way to win when they had to. So I don't think there's much to worry about too much with this team right now. We know what their limitations are.
What are their limitations in your mind? Just height, size, down low?
Down low. It's basically finesse fundamentals in the paint. They have good size, but it's just here's what they are, Dave. I'll give you because they have a lot of athletic players. You know those power forwards in the NBA that like they're high flying, they can dunk over everybody, but when you ask them to do a post move in a half court inside out game, they have no idea what they're doing.
Blake Griffin?
Yes. And Dwight Howard too.
Yes.
That's the post players on this team. They're wildly athletic, but they can't create buckets inside the paint out of a half court offense. Nope. And it's constantly causing problems.
Nope. Got no argument with that. Want to remind you, there's no argument when it comes to buying a vehicle at Ted Russell Lincoln Knoxville. We absolutely love them. And there's a reason why we love them. It's because their buying experience is just so incredible. They will completely take care of you. Again, Ted Russell Ford Lincoln. They are the largest Ford and Lincoln dealer in East Tennessee. So they'll have what you're looking for, and they want to take pride that when you leave their parking lot, whether it's on Parkside Drive or whether it's on Kingston Pike, you're going to be like, man, this guy really this is awesome. I love my new Bronco, and I'm good to go here. So thank you so much, Ted Russell Ford Lincoln. The show represented by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney, banksandjones.com with Caleb Calhoun. I'm Dave Hooker, Off the Hook Sports.
Hey, Ted, it's time to save some cash during New Year's Bash.
Savings is my prime directive. Let's see what you got, Nick.
Right now, you can save up to $10,000 on new Ford F-150s. Beat that, Ted.
Most impressive, but how about 0% for 72 months on Ford Lightning or Ford Mustang Mach-E?
Ted Russell Ford has huge savings on whatever you're looking for.
This checks out.
Come see us today at either Ted Russell Ford location, Parkside Drive, or Kingston Pike, or online at tedrussellford.net.
Now in its 45th year, the second and third generations continue Joe Newbert's commitment.
His vision of what this business needed to be, we still try to live up to that.
Joe Newbert Collision Center.
Having been in the jewelry industry for a long time in the Knoxville community, I saw a need for a jeweler, a real jeweler.
Our ability to do these designs has really been based on the customers bringing new things in and challenging us as a store. Our goal is not to tell anybody what they want. Our goal is to listen to what they want and then help them get there.
Schedule your consultation today to get your special someone the perfect custom gift just in time for the holidays.
Hi, Mike Davis here with City Heating and Air, reminding you to always dare to compare. Our team provides quality local heating and air service, installation, and maintenance across East Tennessee. We use only the best equipment like American Standard heating and air conditioning for your residential, new construction, or commercial needs. Honesty, dependability, and customer satisfaction have been the cornerstones of our business since 1961. City Heat and Air.
Dare to compare. Double D Piping provides full-service fire protection on any scale. From residential homes to government facilities, we can assist any customer through design, fabrication, installation, inspection, and demonstration of fire suppression systems. With 30 years of service across 5 states and a full staff with over 40 years experience, our quality can't be beaten. Don't get caught watching what you could have prevented. Call Double D Piping.
Frank, like the name, but serious or something. The Dave Hooker Show with Caleb Calhoun, represented by T. Scott Jones, banksandjones.com, Tennessee's trial attorney. From the Ted Russell Ford Lincoln Studio, East Tennessee's #1 volume and customer service dealer, Ted Russell Ford and TedRussellLincoln.net. Now to the Dave Hooker Show on Off the Hook Sports.
I thought Major Moves had a great point talking about the Mike Ekeler departure to Nebraska. He said it's not a vital hire until it is. You're right. Nobody looks at the special teams coach and says, man, what an incredible coach. Maybe other than Arizona. That goes back. Former Tennessee coach who coached for the Dallas Cowboys. But Major Moves says it's not a vital hire until it is. Missed field goals, bad punt kick coverage, shank punts. It's still a big hire, in my opinion, guys. I'm not going to argue with that, but I think we would all argue that the more important hires or retaining of services would be Banks, Heupel, Garner. I didn't even say Kelsey Pope. Maybe I need to rank them. But I do believe that it's not the most important hire you make on a staff.
No, it's not. It's not. And I think, again, it's particularly, we talk in dollars and cents. And what was it Lil Wayne said on Bring It Back? And it don't make sense if it don't make that money. But yeah, get the punchline. Anyways, I think that was the big thing. It wasn't worth paying when you could save a little money here, because you just had to up Tim Banks' salary by about $550,000. And I mean,
he knew when Tim Banks' salary went through and it was a hefty raise, he's like, uh-oh, I'm in trouble.
Yeah, because his contract was up on Friday. I think he was already calling Nebraska or wherever, looking for where to go. And I don't blame him on that, but yeah.
Oh, sounds like to me that Tennessee might have been okay with him going out the door. This day in Tennessee sports history is brought to you by our friends at the Hemp House, the premier hemp dispensary online with a wide variety, great selection, and strict standards. Hemp House Chat with 2Ts.com. Hemp House Chat with 2Ts.com. Use the promo code HOOK for 10% off. HOOK for 10% off. This day in Tennessee sports history is...
No, we already did it. We already did this day. Remember, it was about that too? Yeah, it was about Tennessee's win over Kentucky.
Oh, man. I didn't. Okay. But you got to make a bigger impact with some of those stats. Rick Terry, Jewelry Design. Yes, I'm kidding. We want to be your jeweler looking for affordable game day jewelry, a Tennessee tradition. RickTerryJewelry.com. It is RickTerryJewelry.com. It's time for Bank on It. Ryan Grubb, hired as Alabama's offensive coordinator, should terrify other schools, including SEC rivals. So that's Bank on It, brought to you by Commercial Bank member FDIC, life made better. Caleb Calhoun, why do you say that in a column that I will go ahead and drop on the message board, but you believe firmly that this is a monster hire by Alabama and it should scare other SEC coaches? Why?
Yes. And I've maintained for a while that everybody jumped the gun on Alabama, on Kalen DeBoer, because of the issues. I said from the start they would have a bad year because did I not say this time last year Jalen Milroe was a bad fit for their offense?
Yes.
When Kalen DeBoer left Washington, he went to Alabama, and Ryan Grubb was his offensive coordinator at Washington. Ryan Grubb didn't follow him. Grubb decided to stay in Washington and be the offensive coordinator for the Seattle Seahawks. In response to that, Kalen DeBoer hired Nick Sheridan and Jamarcus Shepard as co-offensive coordinators. For those who don't know, Nick Sheridan had been fired by Indiana for lack of productivity. So Kalen DeBoer was kind of just a scramble together hire. And then Jamarcus Shepard was in his first year as an offensive coordinator. I'm thinking this was the plan all along for them to eventually bring Ryan Grubb down from Washington. And truth be told, when you consider what they did at Washington, where Ryan Grubb was as much a part of putting together this cutting-edge air raid that they developed at Sweet Falls together like 15 years ago, he is to Kalen DeBoer what David Cutcliffe was to Philip Fulmer, what we think Alex Golesh was to Josh Heupel, where he's the other guy in the room that sees the field from a different angle. So he and DeBoer work together on these things. And that's a huge deal. When you combine it with the fact that Jalen Milroe was gone. And I don't know if anybody watched some of the Senior Bowl stuff over the weekend, but Jalen Milroe's draft stock is falling fast because, spoiler alert, he's not a good quarterback. And DeBoer kept him on just to keep the team together and was just trying to stay afloat and stay above water. When you combine the fact that DeBoer has the quarterback he wants, because one of these guys that is now in Alabama system is bound to work out, and when you combine that with the fact that Ryan Grubb is now back with Alabama, yes, SEC rivals should be terrified, most notably Tennessee. Tim Banks' defensive scheme that beat Alabama this past year, where they played the high safeties and brought pressure from the edges, and Jalen Milroe was useless, that won't be a thing this upcoming year, guys.
I have to be honest with something you said just then, and that is just having another guy that you respect equally to bounce stuff off of. And I don't know Grubb, and I don't know their relationship per se, but you think DeBoer, if he's bringing him in for that type of cash, has that relationship with him. It feels like Joey Halsey just kind of was standing on third and thought he hit a triple.
Yes. I don't think Joey Halsey, I think Josh Heupel thought he hit a triple, honestly.
No, I think no. That's a saying for you kind of lucked out into something, but you may have been walked around the bases. So I think Halsey's standing on third, like, oh, I had a triple. Maybe not. Maybe you were walked around the bases.
Yeah. No, I mean, I agree with you on that, but Halsey does seem aware of that. That's why he seems scared to push back on Josh Heupel on anything. He's not an extra mind in the room. And that causes issues. You know this, Dave. I mean, yeah, we've talked about it before. During the Fulmer-Cutcliffe years, Fulmer and Cutcliffe both had collective ideas of what they wanted the offense to be, right? But with Fulmer and Sanders, Fulmer won out every time, didn't he? Randy Sanders never won a battle with Philip Fulmer in terms of what they wanted to do.
No. Okay, so are you telling me that more of Alabama's players could gravitate towards the offensive side because they have Grubb, who's in place now as offensive coordinator? Because make no doubt about it, you can rip Randy Sanders' play calling and game prep all you want to, but it was the fact that he didn't have as much talent as Tennessee once thought they had. And basically, what other than Jason Witten, I can't think of any battle that he won. As far as personnel, give me one.
Oh, I can't think of one either. No, you're right. He didn't win almost any battles with John Chavis, and that's a great point. And I think I don't think it'll be that as much as Kalen DeBoer is going to listen to Ryan Grubb on game planning, and they're both Kalen DeBoer and Ryan Grubb will have more respect for the quarterback that they're using this year. Because the quarterback is going to be 17,000 times better than Jalen Milroe was in that system. Look, guys, I'm sorry, winning 9 games with Jalen Milroe at quarterback last year, given the system Kalen DeBoer runs, was a miracle. I know you guys are going to be like, well, Nick Saban took him to the playoffs 2 years ago. Well, Nick Saban ran a different offense, and he adjusted the offense. And by the way, it was so mentally taxing on Nick Saban to adjust that offense, it forced him to retire. Okay, so it was... I actually still maintain that might have been an emotional decision by Saban because of how much he was mentally drained trying to get that offense to work with Jalen Milroe. And Kalen DeBoer is coming in and saying, obviously, he wants to install his own offense, but he has to start Milroe. So he says, let's stay above water for a year with this quarterback who's not a fit for my system, but the players love him. And then we'll kind of nudge him to leave for the NFL after this year, which is exactly what happened. So I don't
think he was nudged. I think he was like, you got to go. Because you're not going to start. I mean, anybody that's a true competitor is going to say, when you say I'm not going to start next year, I'm out. I mean, you can call that nudged if you want to, but I think that's kicking your butt out the door.
I think you're probably right. I think that's exactly what happened because you and I saw it. How bad – and Tim Banks, and by the way, we questioned why Tim Banks is such a good defensive coordinator. Tim Banks literally laid the blueprint for how to shut down Jalen Milroe, didn't he? Which is if you have edge rushers and you play the high safeties in a zone – he can't do anything at that point. And that's a disaster for Kalen DeBoer's offense, which uses the air raid to milk the zone a lot of times. So I think with Ryan Grubb back with Kalen DeBoer, which will help give Kalen DeBoer another voice in the room to run this offense, and with the right quarterback, I mean, guys, I don't know. I feel like we're just forgetting about how good Alabama still is, honestly, and that they're right there in the mix with anybody. Talent-wise.
Well, remember this too. With Grubb, he was with the Seattle Seahawks. So I think this is overblown a little bit in recruiting, but I do believe that kids if all things are equal, kids prefer a guy that has NFL experience. I think it's a little overblown, but I think it's a factor in recruiting.
It is. And the NFL experience can do more things for you than people realize. Nick Saban learned about the what you've always talked about, the advantage of the analyst. He learned about that with his time as an NFL head coach. I mean, that's where he got the idea.
Now, and I hadn't put 2 and 2 together. That was a great point. Bank on it, brought to you by Commercial Bank. So you say bank on it. The rest of the SEC should be scared about the Grubb hire.
Yes, bank on it.
I have to agree.
Commercial Bank is your neighborhood bank. What makes us different from other banks? We understand that every customer has unique opportunities, challenges, and financial concerns. We don't expect you to fit into the same box as the next person or business. Whether it's purchasing a home, saving for your child's future, or planning for your next vacation, we're with you every step of the way to navigate life's big decisions.
Where do you think Alabama's offense was ranked last year in scoring offense in the SEC?
My guess is in the 7 to 10 range.
Third.
It was third.
Yeah.
That's a major testament to Kalen DeBoer and what he did with the quarterback that didn't fit.
I agree. The only two, and no, you're right. The only two teams above him would have been Tennessee and Ole Miss. Ole Miss was 1, Tennessee 2.
See, guys, that's incredible. That's incredible. Given how little of a fit Milroe was for this offense. I'm telling you guys, you should fear Alabama next year. Kalen DeBoer's success, it's translated to everywhere he's been. And he did not have the fit for what he wanted to do this past year. So, look, I think that if I were to circle the biggest threat to Tennessee, I would say it's now Alabama over Georgia, honestly. I think Alabama is by far their toughest game next year. I don't think it's close.
Well, especially with what I'm hearing out of Athens, and that is they expect people to take the discount. And that's not going to happen. I mean, people just are not going to do that anymore. The show represented by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney, banksandjones.com. I'm so excited to be able to purchase a Ford that is just a Bronco that is sweet. I see them driving down the road all the time, and it makes me think, I got to get to Ted Russell Ford Lincoln Studios, and I will. And actually got news that my insurance money's coming in today. So thank goodness. That took forever. I won't tell you the bad insurance company I had, but that's getting moved pretty quickly. But it's in today, and I get to go down and pick up a Bronco, which I'm super excited about. The show represented by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney, banksandjones.com, as we broadcast live from the Ted Russell Ford Lincoln studio. And I got to tell you, that's East Tennessee's largest Ford and Lincoln volume dealer. They just incredible.
Well, Ted, looks like you're settling right into your new space.
Affirmative. Powered by the new Ford Lightning.
You know, that would be incredible for camping, tailgating. The options are unlimited. Why don't you take a little power for yourself, buddy?
Beep, boop, beep, bop.
Get into this new 2024 Ford F-150 Power Boost for only $53,300, or get 0% for 72 months on a Ford F-150 Lightning. Come see us today at either Ted Russell Ford location, Parkside Drive, or Kingston Pike. Or
Frank, like the name, but serious or something. The Dave Hooker Show with Caleb Calhoun, represented by T. Scott Jones, banksandjones.com, Tennessee's trial attorney. From the Ted Russell Ford Lincoln Studio, East Tennessee's #1 volume and customer service dealer, Ted Russell Ford and TedRussellLincoln.net. Now to the Dave Hooker Show on Off the Hook Sports.
Definitely want to thank our friends Peak IV Hydration in South Knoxville and Sevierville. Live life to your fullest. Hydrate, rejuvenate, and elevate your health with Peak IV Hydration. You can order online. If we can drop that chat in there or that link in the chat, I'd greatly appreciate it. Steve Hamer, former Vol, is going to join us tomorrow. So we look forward with that. So, Caleb, we can go whichever direction you want to. I just got confirmation from Steve that we'll be moving him tomorrow. So, where are we going?
Let's go to this story because I wanted to ask the question: is Billy Napier double downing on his cloneness of Derek Dooley?
Okay, I think there's some truth to this, and I think Tennessee fans should be excited that he's there. If you want anything autographed from Billy Napier, you better hurry because they're just flying off the shelves at Sports Treasures, carrying over 5 million Sports Treasures and so much more. Follow on Facebook for the best sports memorabilia daily updates. Sports Treasures TN. Why do you think this in particular is cloning?
So Billy Napier already had a history of being accused of being a Derek Dooley clone for a few reasons. One, he was hired at Florida after being a head coach in Louisiana. He's a former Nick Saban assistant who had no previous success as a coordinator. Now, unlike Derek Dooley, two things: he actually won at his Louisiana school, and also he was a coordinator. He was just a failure as a coordinator. He was fired by Dabo Swinney as an offensive coordinator at Clemson.
Yeah, but wasn't he 4-8 his last year at La Tech?
Well, no, I'm talking about Billy Napier was a coordinator. Yeah, Derek Dooley. Yeah. Billy Napier, I said, actually won in Louisiana. Derek Dooley did not. So on paper, Billy Napier was significantly more qualified, but they were very similar. And then the other thing that made them most similar is if you tried to ask what their strength was, it was nothing ball related. Okay, with Derek Dooley, wasn't it like the evaluation process and his checklist and all that? And with Billy Napier, it was details. And like, it's like, these are not things that make you a football guy. And so we always laughed about that. Billy Napier had the exact same first 2 years Derek Dooley had at Tennessee, which is 6-7, and then 5-7. And then last year, Billy Napier turned it around. He went 8-5, which Derek Dooley failed to do his third year at Tennessee. Credit to Billy Napier. He was almost fired. But just as he's starting to make us think he's not Derek Dooley, he goes and hires a Sunseri to be his defensive coordinator. And for those who don't remember, Derek Dooley in 2012 had an offense that was a top 10 offense in the country and one of the best offenses in Tennessee football history. But he went 5-7 because his staff got poached, and out of desperation, he hired Sal Sunseri as defense coordinator when Sal Sunseri had never been a successful coordinator.
Well, I've told you what an assistant coach said that coached alongside Sal Sunseri, right?
You have, but say it again for the audience in case somebody missed it.
I'll tell you in 30 seconds because it's probably the greatest off-the-record quote I've ever been told.
Double D Piping provides full-service fire protection on any scale. From residential homes to government facilities, we can assist any customer through design, fabrication, installation, inspection, and demonstration of fire suppression systems. With 30 years of service across 5 states and a full staff with over 40 years experience, our quality can't be beaten. Don't get caught watching what you could have prevented. Call Double D Piping.
So I asked somebody about Sal Sunseri, and let's hope for, I don't know, for Florida fans that the apple falls far from the tree. But I will tell you this right now. The person said to me, I think he'll be a great coach, other than the fact that he's not good with people and he doesn't know X's and O's. Other than that, I mean, what more could you want out of someone? Can't get along with people and is not good at the very intricacies of the job.
Oh, I thought it was just not very bright.
Oh, not very bright. Yes, I'm sorry, not very bright. I think that was thrown in there too. Maybe a follow-up was the X's and O's, but not very bright to me. If you're a head football coach, again, you're not splitting the atom. If you're not very bright, you're not going to be a good X's and O's coach, right?
No, you're not. And so, well, Vinny Sunseri, similar to when Dooley hired Sal Sunseri, has no defense coordinator experience. As a matter of fact, he hardly has any on-field defensive coaching experience at all. You want to know how much it is, Dave?
Yes.
1 year as the safeties coach at Washington last year. Before that, he was the running backs coach of the Patriots from 2021 to 2023. He was a defensive coaching assistant for the Patriots in 2020, and he was a graduate assistant at Alabama in 2019. After he played 3 years in the NFL from 2014 to 2016, he graduated from Alabama. He played at Alabama in college. Was a solid player at Alabama as a player, but he's the son of Sal Sunseri, and he has no defensive coordinator experience, just like Sal Sunseri when Tennessee hired him 13 years ago, and just makes you question, does like Billy Napier look at the Derek Dooley model and say, that's the type of program I want to run in Gainesville, baby?
Well, maybe. Can I send you a picture of the young Sal Sinceri here to get your thoughts on him? I'm going to go ahead and send that to Caleb right now. If you can pull that up. This does not inspire great confidence. I'm not saying that everybody has to be smart. Albert Einstein looked like a crazy person, didn't he? But it turns out he was pretty smart. But here's Sal Sinceri. If you can pull up a picture of him.
Did you send it to me in an email?
I did send it to you in an email because I
All
don't
right,
know.
here we go. I got it.
Right.
You didn't send the attachment. You just sent me a blank email.
Okay, let's do this. I can make this work. So you
Dave can be a boomer sometimes.
And all right, so here I'm going to send it to you in our messaging link here. Boom, there you go. If you can pull him up.
Okay. Yeah.
He.
They could have picked a much nicer picture of him.
Can you pull it up, please?
Yeah, I'm doing it 1 second. I'm trying to see if I can. No, I can't. Okay. Like, how does Alabama pick this as their picture of Sal Sinceri? Really? It's like they're trying to make fun of him, isn't it?
It literally looks like he's completely lost. That he has no idea what's going on.
His face. I'm not saying his weight or anything like that. I'm saying the way his face is and the face he's making reminds me of the face Mike Myers would make when he's playing fat. You know what, in Austin Powers.
See, to me, it looks like somebody that I don't know, just is like you put him down in the middle of a city and he doesn't know where anything is, and he's found out that he doesn't have his credit card nor his keys to his rental car, and he's just like, please help me. That's what it looks like to me.
Oh my gosh. I can't even debate you on that. I can't debate you. It's like I don't understand. Oh, but wait, but here's the new defensive. Here is his son, who is now taking over at Florida. Dave, you ready for this?
Yes.
We're having too much fun, and maybe we're wrong for this, but I'm having fun, so I don't really care.
Wait,
let me.
That's Sal Sinceri, the dad, or did I pull? No, that's Senior. Yeah, pull up his son. That's what I meant.
Yes. Oh, that's what you meant to pull up.
Yes.
Okay, hold on. Let me get his son real quick. Okay, here we go. This is him last year as a coach, and trust me, it ain't much better.
Well, that's a little bit better.
He's smiling at least, but
I mean that's better.
Is it though?
Dad's lost thing. I'm sorry.
Yes, his dad looked lost. I agree. He at least knew to smile.
I get to go to see my good friends this week at Ted Russell Ford Lincoln. They're on Parkside Drive and Kingston Pike. They are absolutely unbelievable. I'm excited about picking up my new Bronco. I've taken my time. I've been able to shop around. It's been absolutely phenomenal. So I can't tell you how excited I am to work with great people who support the university. I'm sorry, who support the city of Tennessee, as well as the university for that matter. Ted Russell Ford Lincoln.net. They're very easy to find. TedRussellFord.net, TedRussellLincoln.net, Parkside Drive, and Kingston Pikes. Stay tuned. The show represented by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney, BanksandJones.com. At the end of the day, Sal Sinceri, Tino, was it Tino?
Yeah, Tino's his other son.
Yeah.
This is Vinny who was hired.
Okay, so Vinny who was hired. Vinny and Tino.
I just feel like this is like if you were to do a reality show like they did on SNL, the Florida-Bama Shore with Florida and Alabama, like, you know, right there.
I know.
Like Vinny and Tino would like be the heart of that show, wouldn't they?
I hate to be stereotypical here, but I think I mentioned the fact that at every restroom on the University of Florida's campus, they have hair gel. So the Sinceri should fill in quite nicely.
I mean, they really should. They belong on the Florida-Bama Shore, though. The Alabama, Georgia, Florida line, that little, or the Florida, Alabama, like beach line right there, like the Jersey Shore of the South. That's where they belong.
The show represented by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney, BanksandJones.com. 2 minutes with Caleb Calhoun. I'm Dave Hooker, Off Thug Sports. Why Banks & Jones? Well, it's because they're Tennessee's trial attorney. You can play to win with Banks & Jones because they'll go to trial. You've heard of other lawyers. They say they'll go to trial and fight for you. They won't. They just want to settle. That's the easiest way out. Well, that's not Banks & Jones, led by T. Scott Jones. They won't settle. They'll go to trial for you. Tennessee's trial attorney. They play to win. Truly, Tennessee's trial attorney when it comes to criminal defense or personal injury. Why settle? It's Banks & Jones. T. Scott Jones. BanksandJones.com. Dave Hooker here for Dynasty Pools and Spas. Your home for the best spas and everything you need to jump right in. Relaxing? Therapeutic? Absolutely. But what sets Dynasty Pools and Spas apart from others is that you get everything with any spa purchase. You get the cover lift, the steps, delivery, and chemicals. When Dynasty Pools and Spas delivers your spa from their Athens location within 125 miles, you'll get your own personal hydrotherapy spa. Mention me, Dave Hooker, or Off the Hook Sports, and get $500 off your top quality new spa. Dynasty Pools and Spas, just off the Athens exit. Drop in and receive a free gift from Off the Hook Sports, Dynasty Pools and Spas. Mention Off the Hook Sports for a drop-in prize and that $500 discount, Dynasty Pools and Spas. To check out some of the Dynasty Spa models and to buy spa chemicals, go to dynastypoolsandspas.com. Dynasty Pools and Spas.
Now in its 45th year, the second and third generations continue Joe Newbert's commitment.
His vision of what this business needed to be, we still try to live up to that.
Joe Newbert Collision Center.
With our brand new location on Emory Road, Eye Care Optical is bringing East Tennessee's best eye care to your neighborhood. Doctors Johnston and Combs offer unmatched expertise and care without a trip to Knoxville. Eye Care
Just showing you guys real quick the Floribama Shore for a little bit to have a little bit of fun. I think we have determined that Vinny Sinceri is absolutely the guy on the left. I want to say, Dave, check this out. The Floribama Shore is a real reality show. And tell me that Vinny Sinceri doesn't look like the guy on the left right here.
He looks exactly like that guy.
Right?
And I want to apologize for being here a little bit late. Biscuits and gravy are great until you accidentally dump them in the middle of your studio.
Oh, that really does suck. Yeah, it's okay. I got to show them the Floribama Shore. It's an MTV reality show that's basically based off that's the southern version of Jersey Shore. But yeah, Vinny should be on this. And I am surprised, Dave, that Ed Orgeron has not made a cameo on that show yet, because he should be like a mentor to some of those guys on how to really live on the Floribama Shore.
Caleb has some thoughts. It is time for Tennessee, and looking back at their football team, did they actually misuse what might have been their greatest strength, their defensive tackles?
And here we go.
It was a huge waste of time, like bringing a married guy to Vegas.
Then there's this guy, the Dave Hooker Show with Caleb Calhoun, represented by T. Scott Jones, BanksandJones.com, Tennessee's trial attorney. From the Ted Russell Ford Lincoln Studio, East Tennessee's #1 volume and customer service dealer, Ted Russell Ford and TedRussellLincoln.net. Now to the Dave Hooker Show on Off the Hook Sports.
Okay, so we talked about defensive ends, and I think Tennessee did a poor job of utilizing James Pierce. NFL scouts could prove me wrong. He could go in the first round, and then, fine. But they didn't get what they thought they were going to get out of him at Tennessee. Now Caleb has some information that maybe their defensive tackles weren't incredibly well used. What can you say about that, sir?
Yeah, so two things kind of stand out about their defensive tackles. As you guys know, they lost three key ones: Amari Thomas, Elijah Simmons, and Omar Norman Lott. Amari Thomas was the leader of the group, but in terms of just raw physical talent, was probably the least talented of the three. Wouldn't you agree? And that's not a knock on him. He just didn't have the physical freak status of Elijah Simmons and didn't have the ability to rush the passer that Omar Norman Lott had.
Tell me again who you'd have third.
in terms of raw talent, not production, not leadership, not intangibles, anything, other things that are valuable, but in terms of just raw ability, Amari Thomas was third on that list of talent, wasn't he? Behind
Yes, as long as you don't factor in Elijah Simmons' health issues, because that was a reason why he didn't play more. He was constantly hurt. So, but I see where you're going.
Yeah. So we already know Amari Thomas with the leadership and intangibles. Omar Norman Lott stood out all week to scouts last week at the senior day, and to the point to where they started questioning why he didn't play more. Now,
they haven't gone to the combine yet, and which they'll do an extensive physical. That'll be his issue.
Right. No, that's very true. And you know this, Dave, the Senior Bowl, it's very easy to overreach yourself or underreach yourself in the Senior Bowl. Honestly, there are so many things that
It's
go
very
wrong.
good. Actually, I know players that match up where they get in line, so they go against other players that they know they're better than.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because when you like an offensive and defensive line, you're going at it, like whether it's receivers, defensive backs, or whatever. Yeah, so that happens.
So Norman Lott played just 17.3 snaps per game this past year. And there were
First of all, that's ridiculous, because I could tell you by eyeball test that he was the best overall interior rusher. Now, I can't tell you if he did everything right on run stoppage all the time. But I will tell you that as far as a guy that can shed tackles, he was by far their best at defensive tackle.
Yeah, and isn't it insane that he only played that many snaps per game but had 4 sacks on the year?
Insane. It's troubling. It would be something that at the end of the year, you get caught up in stuff in football, and you don't really know who's getting that many snaps, and things are going up. They're moving a mile a minute. But at the end of the year, if Josh Heupel doesn't look at that and have a major problem like Rodney, Garner, Tim Banks, why didn't this guy play more? Then, he should play 30 snaps, especially Caleb, since they went to a slower offense. It's not like they were worn out.
Exactly. And see, then came the news that Elijah Simmons was invited to the NFL Combine. Also was a rotational player. With those two in mind, and with Omar Norman Lott playing 17.3 snaps, my question is, and I wanted to pose this to you, Dave, did the desire for depth, did they lean on that too much and maybe sacrifice just actual better players playing more snaps sometimes?
Yes.
I get the thing, you want to keep guys fresh, but did they overdo it?
Yes. And Kelly brings up a good point. Big O would be a great offensive guard. He would have played offensive guard 15, 20 years ago, back when the earth was cooling and I was around. There's no question he would have been moved to offensive guard, in my opinion. But he had the athletic ability to play. I'm not questioning that. I'm questioning in particular Omar Norman Lott. The way he shed blocks. I'm not going to question Elijah Simmons. So who else am I missing on that interior?
Well, those are the three. Those Omari Thomas, Omar Norman Lott, and Elijah Simmons are the three.
Right, but I'm just asking who went in for those guys? Because Simmons, I'll give the benefit of the doubt to because of injuries. I will give Tennessee's staff the benefit of the doubt there, but I'm having trouble finding guys that, I don't know. It just seems really difficult to me to find guys that should have played among them. You can pull up the roster coverage brought to you by Double D Piping Fire Suppression.
Double D Piping provides full-service fire protection on any scale. From residential homes to government facilities, we can assist any customer through design, fabrication, installation, inspection, and demonstration of fire suppression systems. With 30 years of service across 5 states and a full staff with over 40 years experience, our quality can't be beaten. Don't get caught watching what you could have prevented. Call Double D Piping.
All right, Caleb. So let's take a look at the production last year.
All right, and I got the total number of snaps for the whole defensive lineup.
Okay, I bet you're not going to come up with one player that should have played more than Omar Norman Lott. I bet you're not going to come up with maybe one that should have played above. Oh goodness, your guy that you interviewed. Oh man,
Amari Thomas.
Yeah, Amari Thomas. And you might come up with a couple because of Elijah Simmons' injury. So I want to give Tennessee the benefit of the doubt of that. Who we got?
Okay, so let's just start with Elijah Simmons only played 187 snaps. So, I mean, Jason Jenkins, Omar Norman-Lott, Amari Thomas, Bryson Eason, Dominic Bailey, David Hobbs, Jackson Boy, all played more than him.
Okay.
Now,
slow down a second. Can you go back? Simmons, again, gets the injury pass. Give me the next one.
All right, so the next one. Let's go with Omar Norman-Lott. And this is the one that I think is going to make your head explode, Dave, because I think they rotated him way too much. Now, Jason Jenkins, Tyree West, and Dominic.
Just a little bit slower. Jenkins, to me, is a great complimentary player. He has limited upside. And then you had who?
Tyree West, who didn't play more, but played close for like roughly the same amount.
Yeah, I don't have a problem with playing Tyree West more because he's probably a little bit, given his size, a little bit better of a run guy. So I'm okay with that one too. Again, I would play Omar Norman-Lott, but I'm not going to get on my soapbox.
Well, and also they played more on the end where Omar Norman-Lott would lock up one of the middle spots.
Right.
So now here's the other ones that played more. Dominic Bailey.
That's ridiculous.
416 snaps. Dominic Bailey played more snaps than anybody else on the defensive line this year. Amari Thomas.
Okay.
Bryson Eason played more than Omar Norman-Lott. And last but not least is Jackson Moy played more snaps than Omar Norman-Lott.
Okay. Two that you mentioned, Moy, you have to make a little bit happy because you went and got him in the transfer portal, right?
Right.
And then David Hobbs, you have to make him a little bit happy to tell him that he's going to play next year. So those make sense to me. But there's a couple there that make no sense to me. We love Omari Thomas. He was awesome to do the show. But if you're telling me he's half as good as Omar Norman-Lott, you're crazy.
Yeah, no, Omar Norman-Lott is better and more talented. And Bryson Eason is not better than Omar Norman-Lott either. Bryson Eason played 137 more snaps than Omar Norman-Lott did this year. But honestly, we're not just looking at the guys who played more snaps. Look at the guys who played close to them in snaps because that shows that they were sacrificing Omar Norman-Lott for depth. I mean, again, going this deep, and I think you would agree with me, Dave, on this, it makes sense if you have a bunch of solid to above average defensive linemen and freshness is your value, right?
Yes.
But if you have three really good ones that can make an impact, you do them more. I guess the best example I use is you've seen those basketball teams that are not great, but they go 10 deep and they run 10 guys all the time. And that keeps them fresh for the NCAA tournament and they can make a bit of a run. But eventually, don't they run into somebody where they may not be as deep, but their 5 is way better than any of your 10. So it doesn't really matter. I mean, when you shorten the rotation. And you look at this and you're like, why didn't Omar Norman-Lott play more? And I know what you're saying about Elijah Simmons, Dave, but I'm pushing back because Elijah Simmons seemed healthy for most of this year. I mean, he played 25 snaps at certain games this year. So I'm not willing to give up on give people Elijah Simmons either because I thought Elijah Simmons was mostly healthy this year. And so I just thought they relied too much on depth, honestly.
Well, I agree with that. But here's the other factor that you have to put in there is in NIL, do you have to make these guys happy? I mean, how many of those guys that you just mentioned are gone? I mean, if David Hobbs didn't play a snap last year, he was a 5-star guy. He's gone.
You? How? Okay, but Dave, what about this? What if you say to those guys, would you rather constantly have to split snaps with somebody or ride the bench 1 year and then you get all the reps the next year?
See, I'm not arguing with that notion. I'm just saying in this NIL world, these are 19 and 20-year-old kids, not 35-year-old Caleb and 50-year-old Dave making these decisions.
Well, make the NIL promise. You're like, you'll still collect some money while riding the bench. We can make you that promise, but we want you there for us next year.
It sounds good, but they want to play, dude. I mean, honestly, if I said, Caleb, you can make $250,000 for Off the Hook Sports a year, but you can only write, and I'm not going to use your byline because I just want to say Off the Hook Sports, and you're never going to be on the show. That doesn't sound as good as what we're doing now.
No, it doesn't.
It has to make $250,000 a year. Don't get me wrong. I mean, maybe you would take it. I don't know. But for same money, we're not going to discuss what you make, but for same money, you'd rather, I mean, You'd rather play. You'd rather be.
I'd rather do the show. Yes, exactly. I agree on all of that. But I'm like, the playing promise is like, that's so short-sighted. You want to constantly be splitting reps with people rather than sit a year, and then the next year you take all the snaps and you can really build your NFL profile because you're playing all the snaps.
Okay. Matt's eating and smelling what I'm cooking. He says, how many defensive linemen did they lose to the NIL? Enough said. They didn't.
Yeah, but the NIL is about paying, not playing time. So just pay them.
Well, it's not just that, though. It's also transfer portal. I mean, because you can transfer so much easier. Used to be, I'd say, Caleb, you can't go anywhere for a year unless you go to a school that I say you can go to, and maybe I make you pay your own way, which still to me is the worst rule in the history of all that sport and all in sports. To make an amateur athlete pay his own way is befuddling to me.
Well, college football had the most anti-market rules for 100 years, honestly. But I agree, and I'm fine with that. I think you could have worked out with some players to understand what their roles were going to be. I honestly think I think this was more the coaches just valuing depth. I mean, you talk about playing time and NIL, Dave. They didn't do this on the offensive line. They had 5 guys and they played 5 guys.
Okay, so Steve disagrees with me here. Let's go ahead and get to the second edition of today's Tough Question. It'll be brought to you by our friends, not Bankston Jones this time, but it'll be brought to you by our friends at at Ted Russell Ford Lincoln, the largest Ford and Lincoln dealer in East Tennessee. So we'll see what Caleb has to say about today's tough question.
Today's tough question. Boom. You heard that. Now take it. The Dave Hooker Show with Caleb Calhoun. Represented by T. Scott Jones, banksandjones.com, Tennessee's trial attorney. From the Ted Russell Ford Lincoln Studio, East Tennessee's #1 volume and customer service dealer, Ted Russell Ford and TedRussellLincoln.net. Now to the Dave Hooker Show on Off the Hook Sports.
Steve says Caleb said $250,000 versus acknowledgement no-brainer. So you'd vote for $250K?
Per year?
I didn't even have to go like 5 years or 10 years. I was like, oh man. All right, there we go. I'll get there one day. Matt says agreed. No. Norman Lott should have played more snaps. And I totally agreed with that. And still totally agree with that.
What if the Illuminati calls and says you have to make a personal sacrifice to get Stephen A. Smith money? Dave, are you sacrificing me?
No, absolutely not. He would drive me insane. By the way, I don't know what the Illuminati is.
No, I didn't say to get. I'm saying to get Stephen A. Smith money. To get Stephen A. Smith money. To get his type of money. Right, the Illuminati says you need to sacrifice somebody to be like the next $100 million man on ESPN to talk about what you want to talk about.
All I'm asking you to do is talk to me like I'm a 5-year-old. I don't know what the Illuminati is.
There is a belief, there is a conspiracy theory that there is a secret society that controls basically everything in the world, and it's the Illuminati. And basically all the wealthy people are members of it, and they just basically control everything. And that everything was an inside job and planned and orchestrated to maintain the power of the Illuminati.
Okay, I'm going to change gears on you a little bit. Luka Doncic, I just love saying his name. He did not mention the Mavericks when they were traded. I'm tying this into Tennessee because Anthony Davis was traded to Dallas. They got a guy that's broken down on the final years of his career for some reason, and Luka Doncic was not happy, and that his father spoke out about the hypocrisy and secrecy with which they orchestrated the 3-team trade. Now, I want to be real upfront. Nobody is going to feel sorry for a guy that's making millions of dollars, correct? Because he has to live in LA instead of Dallas. All right?
Yep. I agree.
Does Tennessee have a non-touchable player
in football?
Yeah, because I'm not sure that it's Nico, because you've got George McIntyre coming in. You've got the Brendan Fraser kid coming in. Now, maybe for this year, but I'm just talking about, do they have a just a no-brainer. They can't lose.
I mean, I would have said Jermon McCoy, but they're going to lose him.
I would have gone McCoy, and you tell me if this one's a little bit of a reach, because I actually did some study. I did some film study over the weekend. I thought Lance Hurd really came along. Now, don't judge him by the first half of the season, but the second half of the season, Hurd would be you just can't lose him. McCoy just can't lose him. But the fact that we're not having Nico in this conversation is scary.
It is. It really stands out. And another one that he's not there yet, but I'm going to put him there. Guys, Jordan Ross is going to be on that list when the season starts.
Okay, but right now you're a little ahead of yourself. I know you love Ross. That's a little ahead, right?
No, he's better than James Pierce, guys. I'm telling you, raw athletic ability, Jordan Ross is better than James Pierce. Just like James Pierce was better than Byron Young, and no one saw that coming. Just like Tyler Barron also could have been better than Byron Young, but he was short-sighted. So no, Jordan Ross is better than all of these guys. This dude is insane. He's a freak of nature that can do things nobody else can as an edge rusher.
I've taken 3 votes. Who can Vols not lose? I got Ricky Gibson because of the McCoy injury. Okay, if you'd asked me 2 months ago, I would have said McCoy, right?
Mm-hmm.
But you can't lose your top 2 cornerbacks and go.
No, you can't.
Okay,
you can't.
Lance Hurd at offensive tackle, because I thought he came on, and I'm putting Nico in there, but I'm going to give you the final entry on our poll question we want people to vote on. And if you say Jordan Ross, I'm afraid you might not get 1 vote.
I won't say Jordan Ross.
Okay.
I'll say Boo Carter. Because since they're trying to make Boo Carter Travis Hunter.
I would go Arian Carter before Boo. But do you want Boo? This is your selection.
Yes, I want Boo.
Okay, fine. Boo hoo. Don't cry about it. All right. So
who's there?
All right. So here we are.
Dave, D was talking about you yesterday.
Who?
D.
Yeah, that's pretty good. Yeah, that's pretty clever. All right. So the poll question is now. Can you read that for me? I gave you some love there on the 4th one.
Sure. Who can Vols not lose? Ricky Gibson, Lance Hurd, Nico, and Boo Carter. Okay, Nico's leading, but so far, Dave, Boo Carter's the only one who got a vote. So I think I was right picking Boo Carter.
That'll even itself out. Work Trucks, all about trucks. Trucks that are actually available, trucks that help you maximize your profits by having the right work vehicle. Now, time is money. The perfect work vehicle doesn't break down, has all the space to carry what you need. That's what Work Trucks is intent on offering, while other dealerships just can't do it. Contracting is about time. Work Trucks saves you time, less back and forth trips, and trucks that pass the highest standards to be put to work. The process quick and easy when choosing a vehicle for work trucks, cargo vans, utility body trucks with an iPod work bodies installed. If you're a contractor, you got to know Work Trucks. They're incredible. Work Trucks carries the trucks that your business has to have. You need Work Trucks with an X, LLC.com. Work Trucks with an X, LLC.com. Proud supporters of the Tennessee Vols. Gene say not thinking Nico isn't a can't lose is the pretending way to be way too smart take of all time. I mean, he is the quarterback, don't get me wrong, so he is the most important player on the field. That's not the debate. The debate is
the debate's who's the most replaceable player on the field, or the least replaceable.
Right. Could McIntyre step in? Could Brendan James step in? Or Brendan Frazier, excuse me. Or
Faison Brandon.
Yeah.
I don't know. He's not there till 2026, but Jake Merklinger. Could Jake Merklinger step in?
Okay, Merklinger's not the answer to the question that we're asking. But maybe. I mean, the fact that he couldn't supplant,
Gaston Moore.
Yeah, Gaston Moore, the walk-on. And I'm not so sure that Navy wouldn't have gotten in there before Jake Merklinger, from what I was told.
Hype will play seniority with guys he scouts, though, because he thinks he's so smart that anybody he picks is going to be better just by nature of experience. Heupel doesn't think he misses on guys.
Steve has a great question about Boo. Will Boo line up as quarterback like Eric Berry did? Could they run some Berry Cat? Yeah, they could.
Yeah, a Boo Cat, like Halloween.
Oh, it's pretty good,
guys. I mean, they got to sell that.
Here's my bigger concern with Boo, though. is, do they have a defensive coach? And I think they do in Tim Banks, but do they have a defensive coach like they had with Monty Kiffin that can put him in different places? Monty Kiffin deserved a check from the Patriots every week because he showed them how to use Eric Berry. I mean, he deserved. Oh, what did I say?
You said the Patriots.
Oh, the Chiefs. He absolutely deserved a check for the way that they used Eric Berry. Now, Darth says, anyone in here not saying Nico is delusional, who is going to throw the ball to him? George, Merklinger, 2 freshmen all over again. I get you, Darth Ball. To me, it's at least a topic of conversation that I don't think is easily dismissed. The voting, by the way, when I go to our poll question, is this. Ricky Gibson, 0%. Guys, I'm telling you, if Tennessee's down 2 corners, it ain't going to be a pretty September. Lance Hurd gets 22%. Nico gets 44%. Boo! Carter, gets 33%. I want to go back to an old question that we had for those that took part. I greatly appreciate that. Losing Mike Ekeler is okay. A huge loss. Good riddance, get a better dude. 69% say, okay. A huge loss, 19%. Good riddance, get a better dude, 11% of the vote. So there we go. That's an update on our poll question. We appreciate you being a part of it. Adam says Nico is going to get hurt. He takes too many big hits. David says, who's the 4th quarterback if injuries occur? Caleb.
They don't have a 4th. Okay, Boo Carter. Carter's the 4th quarterback if injuries occur.
Actually, that's not the dumbest thing that I've ever heard. I mean, I know it sounded crazy at first when it came out of your mouth, but I think you're right.
Yeah, you do what Kentucky did a few years ago, and you plug a receiver in at quarterback and just try to make it work. It reminds me of. Okay, I don't want to throw him under the bus because he was dealing with a lot at the time, and when Lane Kiffin worked with him alone, Dave, he had his turnaround. But before Jonathan Crompton had his midseason turnaround in 2009, I know a lot of people in Knoxville that were like, "Why not just throw Gerald Jones in at quarterback the whole time and just have him just run the Wildcat the entire time?" And
that was that. Yeah. Be sure to hit that like button, BFLs. We appreciate it. Blind Squirrel Sports is calling you out, and I think he's a Georgia fan. So please do that and make sure you've got your notifications turned on. Lining up an interview with Philip Fulmer, where we're going to talk about the most transitional prospects that he ever signed. I'm curious. Give me a couple. Where do you think that'll go? Because you almost have to throw in a threesome. What? A trio, Gozy Coleman, Deion Grant, Jamal Lewis. So that's just kind of one, even though it's probably not fair to just roll them all in there. But who else? I mean, to me, Heath Schuler, but that's a little bit before his time as a head coach.
So what's the question of this again? Sorry.
I'm visiting with Philip this afternoon or tomorrow about the most transitional players that he ever signed.
When you say transitional, like
in recruiting,
what do you mean, transformational or transitional? Like when you say transitional, are you saying like they help transition?
No, I can go with transformational is fine. And they may have not shown up and been any good. Like to me, you could argue Jonathan Crompton was a transformational player for the program because he brought in more guys. I covered him. I remember that. Now, was he the player that you expected? Probably not.
Okay, well, since he didn't sign Heath Schuler, I mean, I think you have to say Peyton Manning. I mean, Peyton Manning set the foundation for everything that Tennessee was, even though he didn't win that national title. Like what Tennessee was doing, put it this way, that 97 recruiting class, which was the base of the 98 national title, you just mentioned him, Kosi Coleman, Deion Grant, Jamal Lewis, that was because of what Tennessee was doing under Peyton Manning the previous 2 years.
I agree, and I 100% agree with Steve. It's going to be Peyton Manning. What I'm more interested about is who's 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10.
Okay. All right. I could probably play this game. I mean, Al Wilson. He signed Al Wilson in 95.
You know what, though, Caleb? And
but you're talking about in terms of a hyped-up recruit, aren't you?
Right. This was a little before my – okay. Fulmer might say Jabari Greer. No. I thought you were going to go a different direction. Jabari Davis. I know it sounds crazy now.
Oh, he was hyped up.
Oh, yeah. Big time hyped up. I'll tell you one that got away. How about Chris Sims?
Yeah, that was a big signing.
Now they ended up not getting him, and he ended up throwing mud at Tennessee, saying that the team was racist, which I thought was pretty off-putting.
Well, not to go here, but because it's so cliche with the quarterback that won the national title, but we're underselling how big of a deal it was to get T. Martin out of Alabama. I mean, T. Martin was wanted by everybody.
I didn't bring that one up. I didn't bring that one up yet, but you might be right. How about Casey Clausen? Steve brings up, because what did you do? You stopped over at the Arizona airport and you heard about the guy that was named Arian Foster, that despite the fact that he played with elbow grease on his hands, was a very good running back.
Yeah, that's a good one. You're right. Arian Foster was a solid one too.
CJ Leaker. Okay, it's too good. Just
CJ Leak worked negatively for Tennessee because they ended
right, but they would have gotten Chris, who won a national championship, had CJ been able to play.
Here's the real story. Tennessee not getting Chris Leak comes down to one play, Dave. You want to know what that play is? You may not remember this. They're up 17-3 against Arkansas. They get the ball up 17-3, and Fulmer, in typical Fulmer fashion, sits on the lead way too early and allows Arkansas to come back. Arkansas has a touchdown drive. They get the ball back. Arkansas has it. They have to go 90 yards in about 2 minutes. Julian Battle has a busted coverage that results in an Arkansas touchdown. That Arkansas touchdown forces the game into overtime. It goes to 6 overtimes. In those 6 overtimes, Casey Clausen hurts his shoulder, which is why he can't go at Georgia the next week, by the way.
And you also know Julian Battle dropped an interception in the SEC championship game of 2001, or we'd never be talking about Matt Mock and all of his draw plays, and we wouldn't have been talking about Travis Stevens with a fumble and Dante Stallworth with a fumble. So it all comes back to Julian Battle. He's Caleb Calhoun. I'm Dave Hooker, the show rep. Did you remember that play?
Oh, yes, I remember. It was right in Julian Battle's hands. I think Julian Battle was so shocked that Matt Mock threw the ball anywhere within the vicinity of a receiver or cornerback, because he was so bad. He couldn't get every ball he threw hit the ground in that game.
Eric Berry's going to be on there, Steve. There's no question about it. You just couldn't lose him. The show represented by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney, banksandjones.com. We broadcast live from the Ted Russell Ford Lincoln Studios. Again, East Tennessee's largest all-volume dealer on Parkside and Kingston Pike. He's Caleb Calhoun. I'm Dave Hooker. Have a fantastic rest of your week. This has been a